Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. We're here back at the office. How you doing? Today we're looking at DIY carbon bikes. As you see, I've been building. The office is a mess. Things have been just piling up with all sorts of parts and different things. We are working on DIY carbon bikes. They are from China. They are about a third of the cost. And let me tell you what, they might be worth it. We'll see. I have two of them. I bought a 26-inch for my son. We're actually building it up with 24-inch wheels for now. It should fit him just fine that way, and then we can build up some 26-inch wheels when he gets a little bit bigger and needs a little bit more clearance from the ground. So let me take you along through the journey here and see what we think about these 2024 carbon fiber Chinese frames. All right. So here we go. This is the 26-inch frame. Trying to find a 24-inch fork is quite difficult for it, like a decent one. So what I did is I just bought one of those Bucklos Amazon $120 forks from Amazon. It seems okay for him. He will never know the difference. He's 8. So he is definitely on a different scale. I would not ride one. They flex way too much for me. I would not buy a Chinese fork. They flex. The dampers are not great. They are not very well put together. But for him, he will not know the difference. I can maintain it, make sure that he is riding within his bounds, so he doesn't get hurt. But we will definitely feel a little bit better with him having a little bit front suspension. So anyways, here we go. This is the 26-inch frame. Comes with dismounting brakes, and we have a quick release 135 millimeter rear hub spacing, and then it is a press fit bottom bracket. I currently have a 24 millimeter bottom bracket in there, but we have since changed that. I'm going to a dub size. Hopefully I can make that work. I think I can. And we'll be putting on a little bit nicer crank for him than I otherwise was going to. I have a set of Bontrager XXX old. I mean, these things are like 680 millimeters wide. I actually bought them for a bike back in the day when this was like the standard, but they are pretty narrow bars. But they're still good. I mean, there's no defects in them. They should be just safe for them. And I had these SRAM level T brakes lying around, so we put those on. They're 2-piston. They still have a decent amount of stopping power, especially for a 55-pound kid. So we shouldn't have a problem with that. Now, looking at it here, the carbon fiber does look pretty decent. There's very, very, very few defects in it. There's like a little pink mark. Let's see if you can, right there. That seems to be into the carbon fiber that I can't get out. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty decent. It has a port right here for the, see, that would probably be for the dropper post. I can't tell whether or not it actually has enough space to fit a piece of line through it, or if they, a lot of these Chinese frames come with a, they want you to run internal cable or internal wiring, but they want you to use a section of housing that starts here or ends here. You have bare cable through here, and then it comes out somewhere, down here into another cable. So that way you use less cable, I suppose, or housing. I'm not sure. But let's see here. I actually got a piece of cable lying on the ground right here. This is an awesome video, I know it. Oh, okay, here we go. See if one of these fits down through here. It does. So on this one, that's nice. I did have another Chinese carbon frame that my brother actually bought a long time ago, and he had those little dropouts in there, or not dropouts, but little stops. So I actually had to drill out the carbon to get there. Technically, it wasn't carbon. There was actually a little aluminum housing in there that they molded around. But so that's really nice. So you can run continuous cable, which is my favorite thing to do, because it just allows for less dust and dirt to be introduced into the system, especially when you're talking about brakes or shifting. A little bit of dust can really mess up your shifting and make it a lot harder. So that is what I did here. I did a full housing all the way through. Now, one nice thing about having this bike is newer manufacturers, or maybe United States manufacturers, they would put internal routing for the rear brake, which annoys the crap out of me, especially on my kids' bikes. Because, you know, if I'm changing things around, if I'm working on it, I don't want to be cutting and bleeding lines every time I have to do anything. So this one has external routing for the rear brake, which is so much simpler. So much simpler. All right. I'm kind of getting a really good look at this thing here. All right. Now, it does have a bottle cage mounting bracket, but that's about it. There is no chain guide or bottom bracket protection anywhere, so there is nothing to bolt that onto. Normally you'd have a couple bolting spots right there for something like that. I don't know if I'm a big fan of that, because I really like protect the bottom bracket, because it is a small bike. It's going to have a lower ground clearance, and kids are always going over things that are made for adult bikes, and they end up bottoming out right here or hitting their chainring. So that would be nice. I might try and figure out a way to add one to the bottom bracket or to the crank itself, or space or something. I don't know. I'll figure something out. It did not come with this here little chainstay protector. I put that on there. It was pretty cheap. I got it from China too. I've been buying a lot of things off of AliExpress, and it's crazy. This was like $1.49. Nuts. It's just crazy how much they would mark that up on Amazon here. So let's see here. We have we're doing an X01 12-speed rear derailleur and X01 shifter up here. That is not mounted directly. Unfortunately, these level T brakes don't have a direct mount capability, so I did have to put 2 clamps on there, which is a little less, what would you call it, tidy than I would like to have it. On all my bikes, I have everything just 2 clamps, so it's easy to take on and off if you're working on a bike. I do not like to use what do you call those, like foam grips or lizard skins, the ones that you have to like spray on alcohol and slide them on, and you can't take them off or without cutting them or breaking them, basically, because I'm always changing things up. I'm more of a mechanic than a bike rider, halfway. I actually like working on these things better than I do riding them most of the time, just because it's fun. Everything on here is pretty easy. As you can see, the chainstay and the seat tube, or the seat stay, I think that is actually pretty decent. They're not like super out of whack or different. Sometimes you get these China frames, and I have seen people say like one's way here, one's here. Sometimes that's just the way the frame is made. Sometimes they just didn't do a very good job of making them symmetrical, but I do think this looks pretty good. So I will build him up. I got a set of SRAM 900, something like that, hubs. And then I also had, I'll bring you over here, pause. I also had some custom carbon fiber rims made up from a different manufacturer in China. These were like, $300, 2 something, but then the shipping kind of got me a little bit more than I was hoping. But, well, let's call it $250. So I got their 24-hole, 30 millimeter internal diameter. These things are huge. They're more of an enduro wheel than an XC wheel, because we do race XC, but they're actually pretty cool. They look like they're going to make a great wheel. Obviously, tubeless compatible, and you can see there's the craftsmanship is actually pretty wild on how nice it is. So I've ran other Chinese carbon fiber rims in the past, and they seem just fine, just as much as some of the other ones are. Hardly. We have broken a couple, but that is because we're nailing them on rocks with a low tire or something. I'd like to see some of these other carbon fiber rims stand up to the same stuff, and that's of course on an adult rider. He will be much gentler on here. So again, 24-inch wheels. We're doing a 26-inch bike, but this will, I think, work out pretty good. So if you have any questions about that, let me know, and I will bring you over to my other bike. All right, So here we are. I had to move to a different room. I just have too many bikes in that room over there. So here we are. My DIY frame is right behind me here. I'll flip you around and take a look at that. All right. All right, so here we go. It is a DIY. It is a Santa Cruz Blur knockoff, basically. It is the same geometry and measurements to a slightly different degree. It's not perfectly alike, but pretty much for the head tube angle, bottom bracket, seat stay, or the seat tube. All that is pretty much spot on with a Blur. Now, is it a Blur? No, it's not. There's definitely a few key things. Mainly, we're looking at cable routing here. Cable routing just has these little plastic clips that go in here. They come out down at the bottom. Let's see here, just see down there. All right, and kind of go underneath the bottom bracket. That's a little bit more old school technology. I remember an old Specialized I had the same thing. I have had a situation where I did, on that Specialized, hit a rock and like puncture my rear brake and started leaking fluid and lost the rear brake. Of course, I was able to get it home with front brake, but it just took a little bit longer because I wasn't going to bomb down a hill without a rear brake. But other than that, I've never really had a problem with that. Now, they do go right back into the chain stays right underneath here, if you can see that. With there's no plastic piece there, that's just molded, and that goes right through to here. Now, cable routing was actually a little bit easier than I thought. When you take out these little plastic clips here, there's a little front clip on the front, you kind of pull down and pull out. Here we go. You get a fairly large hole to look through there. Now, it's all open in there, and you're able to use a flashlight, and I have a pick set, like a dental pick set. It's got a hook, a 90 degree, a straight, and a I don't remember what the other one is. Anyways, but I just use those to hook the end of it, just kind of push it through till I can see it. I use either the 90 degree or the hook. I literally stick it into the end of the hole in the housing, and I just use that to direct it out the hole. Did it take 20 minutes? No, it took about 10 minutes. But other than that, it worked pretty darn good. So it does have on this one a port for a lockout. I did not choose to go with a lockout on this bike because I have a bad back. I don't lock this out very often at all because I end up forgetting to unlock it, and then I end up hurting my back or going down the entire downhill section locked out. So there we go. Let's see here. So the build I went with Fox. Fox brand new float DPS rear shock. It's got 100 millimeters. I went with a Fox 120 step cast 34 on the front. And I went with E13 hubs, E13 race hubs with pub carbon wheels, bladed spokes, and I did gold alloy nipples. I did not do brass. I just couldn't get the right color with brass, so I'm going to do these. If they wear out or have a reaction after a little while, I can just rebuild them. So I do all that myself. Carbon fiber bottle cage with a right-sided dismount for taking the bottle out. That is nice for me. Right-handed, it's easier for me to bring that one down. And then, let's see here. I went with an XX1 rear derailleur. And off of AliExpress, I bought these ceramic rear jockey wheels. They're pretty sweet. They're machined aluminum, ceramic bearings. It's pretty fun. They are narrow wide. There is an issue that if you have them in the wrong position and they're not lining up correctly, it will not work right. And you'll be like, what the heck is going on with my shifting? It doesn't happen when you're riding, it just happens when you take your tire on and off. So you just gotta make sure those are in the right narrow wide configuration. I did some frame protection on here, some all-mountain frame protection, pretty much anywhere I could, because the bike comes bare. There is nothing on there that will protect your paint and whatnot. And the paint it's a little bit more on the weaker side. It definitely rubs a little bit, and then, or if you rub it a little bit, you will get a little bit more finish coming off than you maybe would with a nicer gloss coat. I went with a Fox Transfer 150 millimeter dropper. The seat stay is super long, so you can pretty much put whatever one you want. This is an XC bike, so I didn't need to go super long. I am a tall guy though, so 150 is nice. And then this is an extra large bike, by the way. I have this BZA Chromag stem on here. It's super heavy, that will be coming off. But then I went with a race face carbon fiber handlebar, 66C, and I think they're about 760 millimeters wide, with a G2 RSC brakes. Now they are pretty decent. I haven't had an issue with them. I've been running Guide RSC brakes for a long time. They got a bad rap for a while because of different things being hard to bleed and stuff like that, but they definitely fixed that. They have that perfect bleed system now, so I get pretty awesome bleeds without a fair amount of effort now, which is pretty awesome. You used to have to do all this rigmarole and going back and forth and then stopping here and then holding the brake in and plopping and doing all this other junk. The perfect bleed system almost eliminates all that. So I did re-sticker my fork to match, just for fun. And these gold grips are super cheap, but they seem to work just fine for me. I wear gloves anyways, so it's not a big deal. Just need something to hold on to, and it matched the motif of the bike. I might switch over to, I think ODI has a new set of foam lock-on grips. Might go towards those. I have a Race Base Next carbon crank on here with magnet pedals. If you haven't tried them and you're too afraid to try clipless, when you're racing or doing something else like that, you should try magnet pedals. They provide you the freedom of having a flat shoe, along with not having a cleat on your shoe, so you get like a little bit easier grip. You get easier grip when you're like trying to run up hills or something like that. If you get displaced from your bike or have to run up a hill because you can't make it, it makes it really nice and easy to run or to move your bike without the clips on your shoes. Basically, all you get is a steel plate that goes right where your clipless pedal cleat would go, and then that plate just finds itself right here on this super strong magnet. It's 200 newtons. Do not get your finger in between the plate and the magnet, and then you're good to go. It's really easy to pedal with them. It feels almost exactly like when you're clipped in, to a point. I mean, you definitely don't feel that locked in feeling, just because your foot can float there a little bit. It can slide around on the magnet, which is kind of what I like. I like to be able to, get a different riding position every once in a while, slide my foot forward if I'm going downhill or whatever. I don't want to be at a perfect, sometimes I want to be a little bit more on my toes when I'm being aggressive. So I have used these on a couple different bikes along with my enduro bike. They are fantastic. As long as you're pulling straight, they hold just fine. If you need to get your foot off, any pull to any direction will break that magnet and your foot will come off. So I've definitely crashed quite a few times with them, and I've never had an issue with my bike come along with me longer than I wanted to, because I get my bike away from me and I can continue to crash without having to worry about a bike landing on me. So those are pretty sweet. The other cool thing is if you are riding enduro and you are hitting chatter or any sort of braking bumps or a rock garden or something, and you have to, if you're going fast through it, these will keep your feet on the pedals and keep your bike, connected to you. It's not going to bounce around underneath you, and it's just really cool. Like you wonder why you didn't use them before, and then you will never not want to use them again. I got on a bike the other night without them, and It was crazy. My feet kept coming off the pedals because I was trying to pull up, so my feet were like hopping around. Other than that, I did an E13 TRS 12-speed cassette, I think it is. It works okay. It's super light, almost as light as an XX1 cassette, and kind of a bummer to put on. They go on in 2 pieces. You got to push the first 3, or the biggest 3 cogs here down really hard. Make sure they're seated all the way down. Once they're seated, you put this one on here, and then you put a chain whipper on here, and then you put a normal chain, or not chain, but a cassette tool here, and you twist it on, and it locks together, and then you put a little lock screw in. They are okay. I would much rather have the SRAM XD system, just where you can just screw them on, screw them off, just because I like to service my hubs all the time, make sure they're clean. This just makes it a little bit more difficult. However, on these particular hubs, I can just unscrew them pretty easily with the cassette attached, and then take it apart with the cassette on there and just leave it attached to the axle and service my hubs that way. So not a big deal for me. It's not the way I'd love to do it, but we're all on a budget here, right? Now, let's see here. Oh, Continental Race King tires are phenomenal. They are pliable, they're grippy. I have these things pumped up and they still are moving around. This is the what's it called? Black chili compound. I would go with that, not the pure grip. They definitely stick to the trail. I've done a couple rides on it, and they're great. I mean, a couple rides this year. I also had these tires on my last race bike, which was my Enduro. So it didn't really do the best, but we still had a lot of fun. So there you go. That is the E13. E13. That is the DIY carbon bike setup. All right. So, just a conclusion here. Would I buy another one of these carbon bikes? Probably. I probably would buy another carbon bike. I'm not sure if I'd go through the DIY website here in the States, because what they really do is they just have it set up to automatically order you one, which is exactly the same as AliExpress. I found the same frame on AliExpress for almost half the cost. So this one cost me about $980, $940, something like that. And what really kind of jerked me is that when I was kind of less afraid of buying things from China after this point, I started to, go through AliExpress and buy some stuff from them. And I found the same exact frame for like $450. After shipping, you're still talking $150 there. So we're still talking $600, but I could save myself $300-ish, maybe $400. But the same thing, I also bought that other Pine Ridge 26-inch. I could have bought that from AliExpress too, and I could have had it custom painted or put a logo on it or done anything of that sort, and it definitely would have been still cheaper, and it would have been maybe a little bit more fun, especially for my son. So anyways, problems. There's no inside, cable routing, so you will get a little bit of cable noise if you have your cables loose enough to bounce around in there. I have mine pretty tight. I like to really fiddle around with that till they're perfect, so that way my cockpit is super clean. So I don't get a lot of that, but there is the one thing here. I'm going to flip it around one more time. All right, one thing in here is that we have bearings in each one of these, which I did take out and confirm. It comes in 2 pieces, so I did have to put these 2 together. And after I torqued them down and put them in there, I greased them and everything as well, just to make sure. But there is some binding, I think, happens. So without the shock in here, if you try and compress it, it gets to about this area, and it gets really hard to move. So I'm not quite sure if it's binding or if maybe I was trying to compress it too far. I don't think so. I was only going a couple inches because I knew that the stroke wasn't going to be super high. But I'm not sure if that's going to be a problem or not. So far, I haven't felt it. I've shock feels really compliant to all the smaller bumps still, and yeah. So, oh, it does not come with any spacers for your shock, so be ready to buy the shock mounting hardware. It does come with the bolts to go all the way through. However, there is no spacers. So I did have to figure out what shock I was going to buy, and then buy the proper spacers and whatever you call these things that go in the middle that I can't think about off the top of my head. But yeah, other than that, I think it's going to be a sweet bike. It rips. Like, it rips. It is so much faster than my other bike. It's hard to ride my enduro bike now, even when I want to have fun, because this thing just pedals so nice. I mean, that really comes down to the bearings I have in it. I have very little weight. It weighs about 26 pounds with the dropper post in it and that heavy stem. Of course, I do have these magnet pedals on there, which are considerably more weight than a normal clipless pedal. But again, I think the benefits outweigh the detriments of the weight by a lot, because there's a lot of guys that say, oh, I can get out of clipless pedals and it doesn't matter. Oh, it's so easy. It's like second nature. It's so easy. But then I've seen those guys crash so bad, and their bikes on top of them, and them crashing with their bike still attached to their feet, or one foot, or a twisted ankle, or something like that, because they couldn't get their foot out because they crashed in the wrong direction. There is zero chance of that happening with this bike. It will come away from you with those pedals. So what else do I have here for you? Oh, I did put AliExpress has gold rotors. So I got 160 millimeter rotors on here. They're pretty sweet. They are exactly the same as the SRAM Center line, except for I got 2 of them for like $10. So look at that if you are buying some of this stuff that you don't have to worry about. Anything that doesn't have moving parts, a lot of times you can get from Ali or from another company in China for the same price. I'm not quite sure if they're knocking them off or if they're just, hey, we can make the same product for cheaper, so we're going to do it. So there's probably a little difference in each one. But yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys are great, and if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. But anyways, have a good one. Thanks. Bye.